Well, welcome to this coaching demonstration and around speaking, around voice, confidence, and sharing you some of for me, some of the skills that often are not necessarily even um, looked on in most speaking courses. And one of the reasons for that is I've been a voice coach for 12 years. And so through those 12 years, we're actually looking at people's physical voice and how they actually say what they say, not the fact that they're just saying it. So, whilst it's hugely important to have confidence and to gain those initial areas of confidence, just so that we can even start to show up and start the process, when you're wanting to take things on a little bit further, or you wanting to become the person that other people want to pay attention to, we have to start looking at other skills that are involved in that, and the things that kind of separate people that we look at and go, they look polished. And there's something about looking polished and the way that they do that, and it doesn't take years. So one of the things that I'm really a proponent of is that everybody has a unique message, everybody has a unique story to tell and a unique expression, and several areas in that you have of your own kind of superpowers in your story. Once you're able to articulate those, and there's different areas for that, so there is the ability to actually create a framework around that, which is what we talked about last week, and about creating a framework around your message. But we're going one back on this particular coaching demo, and I'm really looking forward to working with people here. Whoever's got a little bit of courage with them, might be able to work with everybody here today. But we're going back to that space of discovering your voice, discovering your physical voice, and actually how what you say and how that's perceived by other people, and how you can make some really key tweaks and things that you can work on and practice at home, so that you can when you're actually putting those talk frameworks or going out, you're not just going out with what I call generalized confidence. You're going out with a real clear way that you are going to articulate and communicate what you do. And I was doing a little bit of research around sort of this idea of brand identity, because voice and public speaking, particularly for people, forms this area of brand identity. And this is one of the quotes from a brand strategist. So we're going to start off with it. And I've got a couple of things that I want to share with you, as well as helping you to actually dive in. And hopefully we'll get some videos on if you're feeling comfortable, so that we can do a little bit of work with everybody as well. But this is the quote from this brand strategist, which I thought was fantastic and really what we're about here. You are a walking logo for your brand. We are wired as humans to connect to faces, voices, and body language. So say that again. So there's two things there, but you are a walking logo for your brand. So whether you have started speaking, or whether you speak for business in the job that you do, whether you have your own business, whether you're wanting to raise your profile for that, in whatever capacity, we cannot help the fact that we are a walking advertisement for our vision, our values, and the things that we say we stand for. So we're kind of always on show. It's just that sometimes we don't think we are. Only when we close the door and our family see us, and we see us off guard, as it were, do they see other aspects of us. But you are, every time you are out in the world, in life, you're a walking logo for whatever it is that you're trying to represent. And we're wired as humans to connect to faces, voices, and body language. So isn't it interesting, especially with lockdown and Zoom, and the first of all, the opportunity that things like Zoom give us, but the amount of times, how easy it is for us to turn the camera off. And there's no criticism of turning the camera off here. We turn it off for lots of reasons. We turn it off so we can deal with distractions in the background, so that we can listen, while doing other things. And that's one of the biggest differences with what we've got in this capacity and, say, a live public speaking situation on a platform, is that unless you physically left the room, you couldn't, you would be a captive audience. And it's much, much harder for people to have that representation on Zoom because we can all turn our cameras off and do whatever we like behind the scenes and nobody knows. So, but actually, when you do turn your camera on, you give people around you the opportunity to see you a little deeper. Now, don't let that scare you. If they can't see you a little deeper, you're not ever going to develop that know, like, and trust factor, which is so vital. So I'm going to share a quote that I think I shared it last week, but I'm going to share it again, and I'm going to read. I'm going to get some. Hopefully, I'm going to get you all off mute and on camera, those who are comfortable with that for me, so that I can hear your physical voices today, and do a little bit of work with you around physical voice and around the power of that behind speaking, because we did sort of share that 38% of why people are even paying attention to you is going to be your tone of voice. And if we are hot wired to look at human beings' faces, voices, and body language, which is where we kind of looked at this last time, if we're hot wired, because what are we looking for in people? We're looking for trust. We're looking for truthfulness. We're looking to see if does what the person say line up with who I'm judging them to be. That's what's going on. It's why people so are afraid of speaking, because we feel that sense of judgment that somebody else is potentially giving us. But if we flip this around, if you want to get your business noticed, if you want to be out in the world, you don't have to be the best. You just have to be the best known. So let's just help you here. 80% brilliant is good enough. Okay, you have to be the best known for what you do. So visibility and voicing that, and public speaking being in all aspects, is going to be a vital tool for you to gain visibility with your work. There is just no way around it. You can create all of the tech funnels you like behind the scenes, but it's going to be a lot harder for people to connect with you and to trust you and like you unless they can sometimes see you. And we do then have to run the risk of people not liking us. Okay, well, that's all right. We have to, it's kind of part of what we have to get used to. Nobody really likes it, but what can help enhance that is some of the skills around speaking, so that at least people can go, well, this person's got a handle on themselves. I'll listen a little bit longer. Okay, then after that it becomes story, after that it becomes strategy, and then it becomes your whole brand identity and moving forward. And you can fast track some of it, but you certainly can't miss out the steps of it. Okay, so I want to just share this with you, everybody. Hopefully my screen will not freeze on me like it did the other day, so I'm hopeful here. So I'll just share something with you. Let's just find the thing that I'm going to share. Here we go. So I can see some of you down the front, so perhaps a thumbs up if you can see my screen, just to make sure that we've got it. Yeah, awesome job. So we're going to be looking at voice. We're going to be looking at voice, pausing, pacing, how to say what you say here. So not even just that little bit of the fact that you're saying something. We're really going to look at it. So long before you breathe in and open your mouth to speak, even as you walk into a room or stand up to begin speaking, the people around you have already made their decision as to whether they will lend you their ears or give you their respect. So isn't that interesting? We're talking about public speaking tonight, and people are already deciding in lots of different ways whether they want to listen to us before we said a word. So how are we going to carry ourselves from our breathing to the way that we hold ourselves is going to be part of this. Okay, so no one, this comes from a book by an acting coach, no one wants to listen to a boring voice for more than a couple of minutes. Now I can see you down the side of my screen, as it were, so it would be fantastic, because I can't see my chat up there at the moment, but if you could unmute yourself when I read some of these and give me your opinions, and we'll have a little discussion about it so I can hear your voices and your opinions. So no one wants to listen to a boring voice for more than a couple of minutes. Have you been listening to any boring voices this week? Have you heard any boring voices? Is there some nods
No,
going on?
I didn't, but I can't see your screen, hey?
You can't see my screen.
No.
Can anybody else not see the screen? Or can you all
Hi,
see?
Angela. I can't see your screen as well.
I can't.
Okay,
I can't see it either.
Okay, let's come back out of share. That's not a problem. So if that's not sharing well, let's try it. Let's try again. Hang on. Tell me if you're seeing it now.
It's just black.
No, okay, so it's not wanting to share screen, so I won't. I shall read it to you. Okay, so no one wants to listen to a boring voice for more than a couple of minutes. Okay. And boring voices are where things are monotone. So we're going to be looking at really using intonation, etc., and the use of intonation, the up and down nature of the voice in a moment. Not just that, but nobody wants to listen to a really pushed or aggressive voice. So if there's lots of kind of salesy, pushed or aggressive voices, we find we back off from it. Anybody feel that they back off from voices that just, don't sort of resonate with them? Yeah, isn't it interesting? We're having such a reaction to voice. Third one, the extreme effort needed to listen to a mumbled voice frustrates us, and it's really challenging within video, sort of Zoom, if people haven't got a good microphone or there's not a good sound quality coming out, or we cannot transcend accent barriers, and that's more challenging for people if you're speaking in a foreign language. So, there are challenges to it, but if people have to work too hard to listen to us, they basically won't. That's the end of it. They basically will just switch off. So we could have a beautiful voice. Okay, I've heard some beautiful podcast sounding voices, but if we're kind of listening to the beauty of voice, but we can't get the message that they're saying, then it kind of misses the point as well. How very interesting. We don't want to listen to a voice that sounds like it's apologising for itself, like it's doing political spin, or it's arrogant. We get turned off by all of this. How very interesting. So, how very interesting. And we don't want to be addressed by a fidget, and we don't want to be addressed by stiff people. It seems to exasperate people. This is all coming from an acting coach. No one likes people who try so hard to be liked that it feels odd to us. We don't want falseness. We don't want false charm or false power or false enthusiasm. We want people to have a full attention, be in full presence, and be really speaking from their full truth. So it's about presence, and that presence happens in and through your voice, not only your body language. So I would love to have a little listen to your voices right now, because then I can hear your voices, and then we're going to go into a little bit of a live coaching demo for those who are feeling brave enough or want to do something. And we'll do a little bit with everybody that you can, we're going to look at some breathing and what that sort of grounded sense of voice is about. We're going to look at how breathing and phrasing what you're saying is really important for gaining that credibility with people. And I'm going to show you some techniques that you can try at home to actually gain your optimum speaking pitch. Did you even realise you had an optimum speaking pitch? Who knew? Who knew this stuff? We're going to look at what that tone is, why it's so important, why people sort of see the real you when they see your optimum speaking pitch, how it makes your voice last longer and sound better, and also how you can certainly use certain stresses in words to get your message across, and why that is quite savvy, and all professional public speakers learn this stuff and work with people around this stuff. So what I'm going to be teaching you this evening is way past the beginner stage, even at just this level. So it would be super if those who are feeling comfortable to either unmute themselves or just show me their video for a moment, just so I can actually physically see you speaking. And all I would love you to do is maybe just introduce yourself, tell us your name. It doesn't matter where you are, tell me your name, and just maybe what you do for a living, etc., and what you're hoping to do. That would be really super, and I can have a little listen to you. So I'm just going to kind of come to people to make it easy, and then otherwise everybody speaks at once. Okay, so let's. I'm not going to pronounce this very well, so I don't know. So is it? Oh gosh, Sine? So please help me because I have no idea how to pronounce your name yet.
It's Sneh.
Snay, brilliant. Well, I was kind of getting there, as it were. I was trying to work it out. So, would you love to just obviously pronounce your name correctly for me and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Sneh and my surname is Shabalala. I'm 22 years old and I'm currently based in South Africa, living in the east coast of South Africa, called a city called Durban. And right now I'm currently a part-time student studying economics, and I'm also running a business on the side. On top of that, I'm also an intern. So I'm doing a 3-month internship program for entrepreneurship. So I'm quite busy at the moment. That's pretty much what I'm doing at the moment.
Awesome. What about public speaking interests you, or what you would like to use it for?
So I've always been told that I'm a great speaker. Since doing orals in high school and in primary school, I've been told that it's a gift. And in terms of using that gift, I feel like for me, I would like to make an impact. I'm not too sure where or how, but in terms of impact, that's how I want to use the gift.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Marcia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marcia Cole. I am a wife, a mother, and a registered nurse by profession. I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit here in Maryland, Washington, D.C. area. And I am the host and founder of a weekly Zoom talk for women of faith called Faith Focus and Finish Strong.
Awesome. So what would you like to get out of your own voice and the way that you deliver especially if you're podcasting, etc., in the things that you're involved with? What's important for you about the way that you deliver your voice?
I think what's most important to me is like clarity. So truly identifying my target audience and getting clear on my message, because I had this mindset that everyone is my audience, but I know that everyone can be encouraged by the words that I speak, but everyone is not my audience. And so just understanding how I can use my story, my knowledge, and my wisdom to speak into other people.
Cool. Okay. Fantastic. Mapule, am I right with that name? Am I saying that correctly? Mapule? Have we got Mapule? Nope. Okay. Now all I've got is N Davis, so help me out here.
So my name is Nina.
Nina.
I am a VP of HR for a startup company. But for me, that's kind of more of a hobby, which I know it wouldn't be for most. I'm an entrepreneur at spirit. So I have a real estate company that I manage out in Atlanta, but I currently reside in Michigan. So I'm often back and forth from there. And then I just really wanted to take this course, similar to what Marcia's is to identify my audience, right? So I grew up in at-risk youth, but I've had that opportunity of just kind of transitioning in different corporate worlds, startup worlds, and a bunch of different disciplines. So really just kind of honing in on exactly what that is, so I'm not spinning the wheels for no reason, right?
Awesome. Brilliant. Eva.
Yes, so my name is Evelina Jakimowicz. I am based in Spain. I'm from Poland. I am mother of a boy, 4 years old, Oliver. So basically, I am fully qualified ACCA. It's a financial qualification recognized around the world. It's the top qualification, actually the high qualification which you can have. And but recently, I was a company director for a big company. So I decided some time ago that I would like to change my career and do something different with my life, and as well changing other people's lives. And why I'm here, I have to say that first time where I came here was last week, and I spoke before with Daphne, and then I joined the Zoom call with Angela and Daphne, and then we had some conversation with Angela. And actually, I have to say that Angela really makes me interesting about her personality and her way how she's approaching people and how she's actually taking directly to each person and finding the solution, the right solution for each person. That for me is absolutely yes. And I think like why you actually have to choose between different courses. So I had to like decide which course I want to take because I'm taking different course as well. Actually, I have 2 weeks to go. And I had to decide which one course is better, more suitable for me. But like I had this conversation with Angela and I was like really blowing myself that she was really good. She could understand me, my needs, and she could quickly actually say, okay, you need this, 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 and this, and I can help you. And that for me was absolutely yes. So that was absolutely great. And yes, that's why I'm here. So I wanted to share this.
Thank you, Eva. Just coming back to Mapule, just in case she's here or had to go off, as it were, which is fine either way. But actually, you lots of you have talked about finding your voice for your audience, as it were. So we're going to look a little bit about physical voice right now, but also that physical voice, and then the way that, say, for instance, the conversation that I had with Eva. And being able to identify and getting heart to the point is it's part of voicing. It's part of being able to do that. So we're going to have a little look at physical voice right now, because physical voice, as soon as you start to feel comfortable with your physical voice, it's amazing how you start to sort of ground it. So I've just watched a couple of you speak. Quite interesting. You see, you don't know what I'm watching. Leonora. We've got Leonora back. So Leonora, just before you just dropped off, I think, the call when I was just asking people just to speak to me so I can hear your physical voice. It would be lovely. So would you like to just introduce yourself, tell me a little bit about yourself, as it were, and what's important about sort of public speaking, or your voice to you?
Hi, I think public speaking is so daunting for me. Yes, when I'm in a group and I'm with other people, I'm fine, but knowing that I stand before a crowd, I was once asked to speak at a church, and the funny thing is, I thought I was just one of the extra speakers. I wasn't the guest speaker, and I was speaking on vulnerability. And when I got there, I realized I was the guest speaker, and I had prepared like 3 minutes of content to speak about. And my talk was about vulnerability, and I have never felt so vulnerable in all my life as standing there amongst everyone and looking down at them. You could actually see my clothes shaking on my body. And somebody actually felt so sorry for me. They gave me a glass of water. And as I took it, I was literally doing this, thinking, oh, I'm making such a fool of myself. So I realized that it does come down to how you feel and how you look. And so I want to get to that place where I'm able to speak like I do with other people. If I have a little group that I do, I'm quite fine. If I'm speaking to a person one-on-one, I'm fine. But when I see the crowds, I all of a sudden just go weak at the knees.
So I'm going to be looking for somebody to work on tonight, so some of you may want to be worked on, some of you may not want to be worked on. You may want to watch, as it were, but I'd very much, Leonora, I feel very drawn to maybe helping you with that voice journey, and then obviously in the chat, if there's anybody else that wants to have a little bit of hot seating, then feel free to pop it in the chat, and we should have plenty of time to get to and fro here. But sometimes watching somebody have a bit of a live coaching demonstration Leonora, if you're up for it, is
Right.
Marcy's going, me, is if you're watching people having a live sort of coaching demonstration, it can be really interesting and fascinating watching somebody else. You see it from a different angle. You know, you'll get to kind of see how I work with people one-on-one, as it were. And also, and what we'll do, everybody, is we'll kind of have this little thing going on, right? I'll do some work on Leonora. And then what we'll do occasionally is we'll kind of pretend that we've just come out of a session with Leonora and she can't hear us. And I'll kind of come and talk to you what I've been doing with Leonora. Okay, so as if we'll just kind of leave her hanging while we, you know, we'll do a little bit of work with Leonora, then we'll just leave her hanging as if she's kind of in the green room somewhere and she can't hear us. And then I'm going to come back and have a little conversation with you all as well, what I've been doing with her and what I've been hearing. Is that all right? Cool. Okay. So, we're going to do a little bit of work, and what I want you to do for me, I need a little bit of a prop, Leonora. I need you to kind of help me with this one, because I'm going to kind of use something first of all that you're going to speak from, because that'll give me a little bit of an idea of how you're phrasing and pacing things, etc. at the same time. Is that okay? So what I'd love you to do is, have you got a book or a magazine close to you? Feel for it a bit intuitively. Go and pick something that is quite close to you, a book or a magazine, etc. And what I want you to do is I want you to turn to a page in that book with maybe a smallish paragraph. That's it. So I want you to turn to a page, find a smallish paragraph, etc. And what we're going to do is we're going to use that paragraph and we're just going to leave Leonora, so don't choose it yet, as it were. We're going to kind of choose it a bit random in a moment, okay? And the reason, just so we leave Laura in the green room a moment, the reason I'm asking Laura to choose a paragraph that she hasn't read before is because she's going to be quite off the cuff. She's not going to have any preparation of that, and straight away I'm going to hear how she reads ahead, how she copes with phrasing, etc. So, you know, every one of us can practice something, can come out with us, but I'll be able to see how Leonora is using her voice, her breathing, how she's reading ahead, and how she's using her phrasing at the same time. So that's the reason why. I'm just going to have a quick drink because it's rather warm in here. That's the reason why. And just a quick tip here on the speaking front, it takes about 3 hours. If you're wanting to be a good speaker and you're wanting to hydrate yourself, it takes on average, if you're drinking, about 3 hours for water to actually hit your vocal cords, because it's going to go to your vital organs before it even goes to your voice. So you want to, if you are speaking, you want to be, or you're doing a lot of talking, your voice heavy, in other words, you might be on the phone or in meetings a lot, you want to stay hydrated a lot of times, you know, through the day, because it's no good having a quick splash of water beforehand with those dry vocal folds, as it were, because they won't behave for you in the way that you want. You need to keep that hydration up, particularly as the weather gets hotter. Okay, Leonora, we're coming back to you. So what I would love you to do is pick a paragraph out of that book, okay? And I want you to read us that paragraph. I'm going to just make a little bit of notes about what I'm hearing, okay? So just read ahead of that paragraph.
Brian has written and produced more than 500 audio and video learning programs, including the worldwide best-selling Psychology of Achievement, which has been translated into 28 languages. He speaks to corporate and public audiences on subjects of personal and professional development, including the executives and staff of many of America's largest corporations. His exciting talks and seminars on leadership, sales, self-esteem, goals, strategy, creativity, and success psychology bring about immediate changes and long-term results. Prior to founding his company, Brian Tracy International, Brian was the Chief Operating Officer of a $265 million development company. He has had successful careers in sales and marketing, investments, real estate development and syndication, importation, distribution and management consulting. He has conducted high-level consulting assignments with several billion-dollar corporations in strategic planning and organizational development. He has traveled and worked in 107 countries on 6 continents and speaks 4 languages. Brian is happily married and has 4 children. He is active in community and national affairs and is the president of 3 companies headquartered in Solana Beach, California. Brian is the president of Brian Tracy International and Business Growth Strategies, an internet-based company that helps businesses of all sizes increase their sales and profitability by implementing the best practices of top businesses worldwide.
Awesome. Well done, Leonora. Okay. Awesome. Well done. So we're going to just leave Laura in the green room a moment, and I'm going to come back to you in the room. Okay. So when you were listening to Leonora, when I was listening to Leonora before, I'm listening for several things in a voice. Okay. So Leonora can't hear this. I'm just talking to you. Okay. So I'm listening for several things in a voice. I'm listening for, especially if they're not used to reading, you know, or they get something straight off the cuff. I'm listening for how they're phrasing things. Like, first of all, am I picking up the essence of what they're talking about? And I did pick up at least 50-60%. I knew it was about Brian Tracy because his name was mentioned a lot. So often when we're mentioning things a lot, people kind of will pick their ears up. So that's a good tip in remembering when you're speaking, is that if we're kind of mentioning things more than once or twice or 3 times, people will remember it more, saying it in different contexts. But I was looking up, just listening to the phrasing. So sometimes the phrasing was a little bit what I call like a little bit of a firing gun. It's not quite so smooth in the phrasing. Have you noticed? It's just a little bit kind of at times. Okay. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that, which Leonora doesn't know yet, but she's going to find out pretty soon. Okay, so here's some of the reasons that she doesn't know. So some of this is that she's used to taking quite a shallow breath, and the voice is kind of tight and kind of held on one level. There's not a lot of jaw movement in here, so that everything kind of gets stuck at kind of one level in the voice. So if we had to listen to Leonora for 45 minutes, we might find that there's not a lot of tonal kind of ups and downs in Leonora's voice. There's not a lot of movement, and it's a little bit firing. So after a while, we might just start to turn off, even though Leonora's a really lovely human being. She might be giving us great information, and just because after a while that voice doesn't move a lot for us, and it's not comfortable in her body, we might be turning off. And that would be such a shame, because she clearly has got a lot to offer and to share with us. So I'm going to be looking at Leonora's phrasing. I'm going to be looking at her jaw position, tongue, mouth, etc. I'm going to be looking at, I actually think Leonora's optimum speaking pitch is a little bit lower than the speaking pitch she's speaking in, because we end up creating habits of speech and we can't tell what they're like. Have you ever listened to your answer machine back to you, or your own voice on video? Does it sound anything like you think you sound to yourself? No. Why is that? Because we only hear ourselves through our own bones. We are the instrument. It's like we've got our instrument on the inside of us, but our amplifiers are on the outside of us, and we can't quite connect the dots. We don't know what we're listening to. That's the problem with the human being. We don't quite know what we're actually hearing back. So then we get this really big shock when we hear our own voice, and we go, oh, I don't like that, you know? And actually, we can look at it and go, okay, so everybody's going to hear. We can start to really look at a voice and go, where does that voice bring out the colour of the person? Okay. And that's what we're going to have a go with Leonora, and bringing out a little bit more of the colour in Leonora, because I think she's probably got a much more colourful personality than her voice is showing and sharing with us. Do you think that might be? Because Leonora doesn't know I'm saying any of this. She has no idea what we're talking about at all. Okay, no idea. So we're going to go back into the room with Leonora. And I'm going to start to do a little bit of work with her physical voice around this passage that we've chosen to work with, okay? And we're going to see, and I'm going to come to you as well in the sort of audience, as it were. And I want you to tell me if and what you're noticing in Leonora's voice, okay? If you hear it, okay? So we're going to do a little bit of work on it. Now, I didn't prep Leonora beforehand, so she doesn't necessarily have a straw handy or anything like it. Do you have any straws in the house, Leonora, or not?
I do. Can I go and
Perfect.
get one?
Could you go and get one? That would be
I
amazing.
could. Okay.
And while Leonora's getting that straw, because I'm going to do the work with her, I'm going to show you how you can use a straw in speaking and to also warm up your voice, as it were, before you do anything. Because when we're kind of when we get up with what I call morning voice and we have to get on the phone and do things, that's not always very comfortable for people. So you can take a straw, and we're going to start with taking that straw and going all up and down. There's another way that you can do it. So we're just giving them a couple of straw exercises, Leonora, and we're going to do those with you as well. But if you haven't got a straw handy, you can do it without a straw. And I want you to do, now you can all stay on mute and do this in the comfort of your own car or home. So you don't have to kind of hear any of this, as it were. Nobody else has to hear it. But if you take a kind of what we call a fricative sound, a kind of V sound, a V or a Z or a Z sound, like a V, a sort of J sound, as in jete in French, and a Z sound. So these are what we call fricatives, and they get your vocal cords buzzing and they get your air flowing. So we're going to use that to go up and down through our own voices. So I'm going to do it, you're going to copy, okay? So I can see your movements, okay? So Leonora, I'm going to work with you in a moment, but have a go if you want. So we're going to go. Everybody have a go. And everybody turns their cameras off so they can do it in private.
It's funner that way.
Awesome. Now you can do that with a kind of zh sound as well, or a sort of Z sound. Zzz, and the idea is that you're moving up and down and you're getting your vocal folds to stretch, because we only ever speak on a small portion of our voice most of the time. Okay, just the bottom end. This starts to move your mechanism around. It gets your breathing working, and it starts to help you to feel your voice in and use your body at the same time. So it's a really easy exercise for you to be in the car or just in the shower and just move that voice around, okay? And then we want to kind of get the body working a little bit, because so many times we're sat in chairs, we're not using our whole selves when we're singing, or certainly when we're speaking. So you take those same fricatives and you can go as if we're kind of doing a little pulse. Have a go. She's going on a treasure hunt for a straw. Awesome. So these things can be just moved, and they're so simple, but they're incredibly, you often don't need many things to unlock a key element of your voice. So now that Leonora's got her straw, we're going to do a little bit of work. So you can come and watch. We're going back into the place with Leonora, do a little bit of work on her voice, okay? Now, Leonora, I want to be able to actually take this passage again, but we're going to do something special with the straw, because what's going to happen with the straw is we're going to use this straw to speak through. So it's going to sound a bit muffled, it's going to sound a bit odd, but what it does do for somebody whose breath is not really being used in their body enough, etc., and they're not really used to using their whole body and sort of finding that, it's going to work your body in a slightly different way, and you're going to feel it, okay? And you can report back to the room once you've felt it, okay? So first of all, I want you to take the straw, and I'm just going to kind of do a UK nursery rhyme, as it were, or I might use happy birthday, but I want you to take the straw and I want you to speak all the way through the straw like this. So you can tell I'm saying happy birthday, even though you can't quite make out all the words. Now, don't cheat, Leonora, because people are naughty. They try and cheat on this exercise and they go, happy birthday to you, so they can hear themselves. I don't want you to hear yourself. I want all of that sound to go through the straw, even if it sounds very muffled. So what that's also going to do is going to unlock your jaw when you're speaking, because you weren't using that very much either. So if you go back to that passage for me, Leonora, and then if you take, maybe it's going to be quite laborious, we don't want the whole passage, maybe the first 3 or 4 sentences, and I want you to see if you can speak those sentences all the way through the straw. Okay? Have a go
Okay.
for us. Let's
All right.
watch Leonora. Awesome. Did anybody notice anything interesting? That Leonora's voice tone dropped in pitch. Anybody pick that up? Did anybody pick it up? Sometimes, so, I'm kind of giving you my ears here, but anybody pick that up a little bit? Did it change a little bit to you? If we ask Leonora, did it feel deeper to you?
It did feel deeper. It did.
How very curious. Okay. How incredibly curious. Now, what I want you to do, Leonora, is I want you to, because you felt it for the first time, it's like, oh, it's all a bit new. I want you to read those couple, 3 or 4 sentences again, but I want you to kind of go, well, where do I feel it? Almost like questioning yourself as you do it. Where do I feel that sound? If I were to have to find that sound without the straw, where would I go back to locate it as a resonance, the feeling in my body? So take the straw again, and then just kind of give yourself an extra little thought around it.
Okay. So I read it again with the straw.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, so I felt it here.
Yeah, interesting. Certainly in sort of vocal circles, they often call this, even though the voice isn't in your chest, as it were, we're talking like where it resonates or where you feel it. They'll often talk about chest voice or head voice, if any of you ever sung anywhere, a chest voice or head voice. Now, we know, look, here's the voice. It's sitting here, right behind your sort of Adam's apple. So why is it that we call things head and chest voice? What is it that's going on there? Well, we have what we call a sympathetic resonance, like we have a bounce back. You are a soundboard. Hello, welcome to your full instrument here, okay? We're not just a lollipop head on a stick talking at people, not using our body, but we're sitting down in chairs and we're not thinking of the whole thing. So if you're not using your whole body when you're speaking, we're missing a huge portion of who you truly are, and voices get stuck in habits, okay? So what I want you to do is, that feeling of where it was, I want you to put your hand on your chest here, Leonora, for me. And I want you to read, and also I did notice as well, is because we had kind of like that whole thing unstuck a little bit, the jaw was moving a bit more, the actual, what we call the larynx here that houses your vocal folds, that had dropped a little bit. So you had got a sense of your voice in a different space of what was going on. I want you to see if you can tap into that for me and take maybe those first couple of sentences that you read again. And I want you to see, now it's going to take a little bit of you almost going, how do I recreate that, as it were? But I want you to have a go, and we can have a couple of goes of recreating where that tone actually lives. And I want you to see if you can do that without the straw for me. So tap into where you feel it and speak almost as if you're speaking in the same place as you did with the straw.
All right. Brian has written and produced more than 500 audio and video learning programs, including the worldwide best-selling Psychology of Achievement, which has been translated into 28 languages.
Awesome. Just pause there. Brilliant. Pause there. Let's come back to the room a minute. Did you notice straight away there's a difference in, did you notice that we could almost, right from the get-go, Leonora doesn't know this, right? But we picked up what she was saying almost like immediately. Okay? There's some nods coming from people, okay? So it's like, oh my goodness, we can suddenly like hear what Leonora's saying, like the whole sentence goes like, oh, we're understanding it. How very curious. All we did was get Leonora's voice to kind of sit in to start to sit in its more optimum speaking pitch. Now, one thing that Leonora doesn't know that we're going to work on right now when we go back in with Leonora is that because this isn't a new position for her, she's trying to do this with her old breath pattern. And so she's running out in the middle and didn't quite able to move all the way through the sentence. So we're going to go back into the room with Laura and help her actually find that new kind of pacing and pausing and how she needs to breathe at that level in order to actually embody this voice. Okay. And unfortunately, and it's more of a society thing, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, so we sort of have to embrace the rules of the game occasionally, is that culturally people seem to find people with a more grounded or even a slightly deeper voice have more authority. Now that does not mean that we start to go down and talk like this to everybody because now we want to be more authoritative, to take me seriously. That's not going to work, okay? We tried that in the UK. We had a prime minister called Margaret Thatcher in the 70s, and she, if you hear the two parts of her voice, when she first came into politics, she had a much higher, softer voice. And in order to sort of, in the 70s and things, where it was much more male dominated, and we hadn't really kind of found that authentic voice in us, as it were. And I think, feminism was still fairly new in the UK, probably even in the 70s. She changed her voice and she lowered her larynx so that people would take her more seriously. Okay, so we're not going that far. We want an authentic position where Leonora's voice sits and she can find and come from that place and feel incredibly authentic, okay? Because that's when people will take her seriously. So we're going to look and help Leonora with her breathing right now so she can embody the position of this voice. Because, of course, when everything's a little bit tight and high and we're not really breathing very effectively, it can all get stuck in the same position, okay? And no matter what we've got to say, nobody's listening to us, and that's a really big crying shame. So back in the room with Leonora, okay? Hello, Leonora. So we're coming back to work with you, okay? And you noticed that a couple of those phrases you ran out of breath, and it didn't. You did an immense job of actually finding that space. How did that space feel for you, regardless of the fact that we've got to work on the pause and the pacing of that? How did that space feel to you?
More open and relaxed.
Isn't that interesting? We didn't even need to work on your mindset. We didn't even to go down the road of, did you have to do anything really special in dealing with your nerves for being a public speaker? Did we actually have to do anything else other than find your real voice? How curious that you suddenly felt grounded and relaxed and authentic. How curious. So let's look at embodying this voice, because that's the voice that you use probably when you don't realize it. It's probably the voice that you're using in normal conversation with people. But what we do when we get in front of a crowd of people is we get a bit kind of silly, and then we get a little bit all excited, and our voice, particularly women's voice, tends to go a little bit higher, and we get a bit nervous, and we use what I call the shouting at the kids voice. Dinner! And we don't mean to, but women's voices when they get nervous, tend to go higher, because we have the capacity to sing higher than the majority of men. And men's voices, when they get, if they get nervous or shy, they tend to do one of two things. They tend to sort of drop back into the sort of monotone down at the bottom, or they get pushed and aggressive as if they've got to get their message across to you, okay? And it all feels like a very sort of stern parent at us, okay? None of that's authentic. So let's look at embodying this voice with you and the actual breathing phrases. So first of all, let's just look at breathing. What I want you to do for me is I want you to take that kind of, let's take the straw because you've got it with you. And I want you to sort of just, we're going to do a little bit of a counting exercise with your straw, okay? So we go, so we're going to do like 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're going to hold it for 3 seconds, then you're going to stop and breathe, hold it for 4 seconds, then to 5, then to 6. So just a couple of different lengths, okay? And then pick a kind of middle of the road tone that you would kind of speak with, okay? Have a go, and you can kind of count yourself through that.
Let me know if I'm doing this correctly.
Will do. Brilliant. Now, did you notice when you went to breathe how much big air you wanted to put all of that? And the tone changes when you'd put more air into it, didn't it? Okay.
Yes,
So
yes.
I want you to take your hand for me. I want you to put it about sort of, I'll just stand up here because we're all friends, is I put it 2 inches below your belly button, okay? As you just kind of sit down, then put your hand 2 inches below your belly button, okay?
All right.
And what I want you to do is, I want you, a bit like we did with the chest and the resonance, I want you to create that sort of, we're going to create that sort of breathing position a little bit deeper so that you're actually taking a deeper, fuller breath. Now, the reason why that's important is that if we're going to speak sentences, a bit like singing long sentences, then we've got to be really maximising and using our breathing capacity well. Otherwise, we tend to be doing this all of the time, or it just kind of gets held and stuck, etc. Okay, and we stop sort of finishing in the middle of sentences. So, hand on the bottom for me, and you know that V sound that we started with at the beginning. I want you to do this. I want you to go, and I want you to feel if your hand moves first of all. So just give me that V sound, and I want you to kind of aim it to where that hand is about 2 inches below your belly button. Okay, so you want to feel as you do that V, that hand will probably start to draw in a little bit. You'll feel some kind of reaction in the muscles. Okay, so have a go. So
Is that without the straw? Huh?
without the straw, yeah, you kind of saying a V sound.
Okay.
Beautiful. Can you feel your tummy moving when you do that?
Yes.
Beautiful job. Okay, now let's do it from there. Keep your hand on your tummy for me. And
Okay.
I want you to do hold on for 3, hold on for 6, and hold on for 9. And it's all with that hand on that tummy, okay? So you can psychologically feel that you're using your body when you breathe, okay? And it's doing some action. So you can
Alright.
go 3, 6, and 9.
Okay.
Awesome job. Now, what was quite interesting, so I'm just going to leave you, Leonora, in the room a minute and just come back to everybody else. I'll come back to you in a moment. Is what's actually happening is when Leonora does the 3, she doesn't quite know how much breath to use, so she just overblows it. Okay? Doesn't need to. And then suddenly, because you know our brains are quite wise, she kind of worked out, oh, I don't need that much. And when she did 6, did you notice how much quicker it dropped, it grounded, and there was a different kind of feeling behind it? She's nodding, I think, in the background. So I think she's knowing I think she's got an inkling of what we're saying. And then when she did the 9, yes, it was a little bit more kind of ooh, because she's not used to holding long sentences using her body. But she lasted the 9 and she started to work out how to use her body differently to last a longer sentence. Okay, so we're going to go back into the room with Leonora and we're going to get her to see if she can embody some of this within her phrasing. Okay, so I want you to look. So Leonora, we're back in the room with you. When you come and you do these couple of sentences for us again, okay, what I want you to do is look at the whole phrase as if it's like a musical line from where you get the beginning to where you get either the comma or the full stop. Okay, and your job is to actually being able to speak with one breath across the whole of that line. Okay, really look at it like an arc. Okay. So you might have to put your hand on your tummy. That's absolutely fine. You might even put your hand on your chest. That's fine too. But I want you to see yourself speaking through the whole of that sentence to us, okay? Oh, she's frozen. I think she froze because she coughed. So hopefully she'll be back in the room in a moment. Hang on a moment. We'll just pause. There we go. She's out. You coughed and you froze. You coughed and froze. Okay, you're back. Are you back with us, Leonora? Are you back in the room? While we're waiting for Leonora to come back in the room, give us a little bit of feedback. What are you noticing from how she's using her body and her voice differently? What are you observing so far while we're waiting for Leonora to come back in the room? Talk to me. You've gone all quiet. Talk to me. There we go. She's settling into her actual voice. Absolutely. Yeah, we were just talking behind your back, Leonora, okay? Yeah. So now that we've got you back in the room,
Okay.
so again, one hand on that lower belly for me, because psychologically changing your breathing pattern that's habitual in you, we've got to do it consciously at the moment, as it were. So I want you to think of that whole phrase and realize that you've got to have one breath that goes through that whole phrase. So it's not about overblowing to last. It's actually about using what you've got more efficiently. And if you think of that phrase in a kind of beginning, middle and end, you can utilize the way that you speak your phrase through that. You certainly did it when you had the straw, because it put you into that position. Okay.
Yes.
So what you can do, you can use the straw as a way to kind of find it if you want to, or you can dive straight in and have a go.
Okay, I'm going to dive straight in. All right. Brian has written and produced more than 500 audio and video learning programs, including the worldwide best-selling Psychology of Achievement, which has been translated into 28 languages.
Pause. Brilliant. Now that's a really long sentence. You often get these, don't you? You get a sentence that's kind of really, really long, and it's got a couple of pauses in between. And there's no way that you can often last that on one breath. You know, it's kind of like we get to the bitter end, and when we get to the bitter end, it's kind of bitter at the end. It's a really obvious thing to do, isn't it? We're just trying to kind of hold on, really. So what I want you to do is, when you see that comma,
yes,
allow yourself to take a little deeper, always deeper snatch breath, and a little bit of time. Give us, the listener, the ability to follow along with you, particularly with a long sentence.
All right, shall I do it again?
Yep.
Okay. Brian has written and produced more than 500 audio and video learning programs, including the worldwide best-selling Psychology of Achievement, which has been translated into 28 languages.
How's that starting to feel? I think there's still a little bit of an adjustment to make. I would like you to take a little bit more breath at the beginning so that you can last a little bit longer. And then I think the top-ups will feel easier. Give it one more go.
Okay. Brian has written and produced more than 500 audio and video learning programs, including the worldwide best-selling Psychology of Achievement, which has been translated into 28 languages.
Awesome. Now, let's just go back to the straw and let's do a little bit of a test to see, is she getting closer to it? How closer is she getting to it? And Leonora will know if she needs to make any adjustment because she'll feel it. Okay, have a go. Do that sentence through the straw.
Okay.
Now, here's what I'm noticing is that one of the biggest problems with speaking through, and also maybe then speaking at volume for people, is the ability to speak at volume without raising the pitch. Now, you did that when you did it through the straw, but naturally you're going to want to raise the pitch into that kind of twangy sound when you haven't got it, because it travels easier without you having to make much effort. But when you used the straw, you had to use yourself a lot more, didn't you?
Yes,
You did. So I want you to actually speak it at that volume, okay, with those pacings, but keep your pitch at the same place as where the straw was. So don't raise your pitch just because you're speaking it a bit louder and more dynamically. Okay.
Okay.
Give it one last go.
All right. Brian has written and produced more than 500 audio and video learning programs, including the worldwide best-selling Psychology of Achievement, which has been translated into 28 languages.
Pause. Give us some feedback. What are you noticing? Even just that little bit to me, I'm hearing the whole lot is very, very different in her voice. How are you feeling, Laura? Tell them, Leonora, how are you feeling about what you're doing? How does it feel in you to deliver that?
This last time, it felt more empowering, like I was in control.
How curious.
I can definitely say just by listening to it, it didn't even matter what you were talking about. We were just more captivated. I don't know if it's just going through the exercises and kind of like, kudos you on the way, but it was definitely more captivating. So kudos to you.
Yeah, so let's kind of unpack that. How curious that we've just kind of physically settled that voice in the body, and suddenly she's more captivating. Now, if you go watch a blog post, if you go search how to be captivating, you'll hear a lot of to-dos, and none of them will have anything to do with you settling into your own voice and your own body and using it to the best of your advantage. Yet this brand strategist had said we are wired as human beings to connect to faces, voices, and body language. So why are we working on the tactics and the strategy before we're working on the person? And do you feel less nervous when you're in this kind of position, using your body in this way?
Absolutely, yes.
Can you
More
say,
rest.
yeah, why is that? What's going on with that? I can tell you, I'll tell the room in a little bit why some of that is, because it's a bit it's not necessarily psychological, it's actually physical. But why does it feel so different for you?
It felt like it was easier. I felt more at ease.
How
I think because I was in the body and not trying to put it out there, I was here.
Right. And therein lies a really important part to do with visibility and to do with your messaging and to do with your audiences, which is there's no such thing as out there. When we say to people, I've got to just put myself out there. Oh God, I wish I didn't have to put myself out there. Okay. Anybody's ever kind of mentioned that word? Okay. There's no such thing as out there. You're going to take your space like a pebble in the water and learn to radiate yourself like a lighthouse in the world. And then there are tactics and strategies and systems and processes and ways that we can do that, and getting a message that works for you and your brand and the message that you're doing. But it all starts and potentially ends with you. And isn't that interesting that actually feeling more in the body, in yourself, is exactly what we're trying to do when we pile all of those other tactics on that can't ever make you, a pile of to-dos can't make you feel better in yourself. Finding that inner voice, finding that voice in yourself, and and all I'm doing really for Leonora is is through my fascination with voice over 12 years and just working with that, I'm just providing a little bit of a mirror for Leonora to help her find the positions that actually I can't give Leonora a voice. I can't give her a voice because she's already got one. Problem is she's got it covered up with a lot of habit and possibly a lot of thinking. Okay. Once we get that sorted, we can also start to move forward with the other things that she might want to put in place to express that voice in the world. Okay. So one of the reasons why Leonora is probably going to feel very nervous when she's speaking is if that breath's really high, it's like fight or flight breathing. And as soon as we get nervous, we start to breathe more shallowly. We start to hold our breath. And by nature, that translates into your mind is there a threat in front of me? Oh my God, should we run? Should we fight? Is this going to hurt me? Is it going to humiliate me? So we're creating a whole lot of meaning through physiology and the way that we're using our physiology. We're also almost creating more thought storms, as it were, like a sandstorm, and we don't realize we're doing it. It's very innocent. So when we can actually work with the physical body and get you more grounded in the way that performers and actors are able to do, you're able to manage those nerves in lots of different situations because you know how to suddenly get grounded in your body. So that's a little bit around sort of voice work, as it were. And what's possible when you start to find your voice and how much you can take off your to-do list. Almost like what's possible now for Leonora when she's finding that space in herself. The next logical thing is, well, what do I want to talk about? And then where do I want to talk about it? And how am I going to structure that and put that together? A logical step-by-step process rather than I'll have all of this stuff to hide the feeling of insecurity that only exists because we don't know how to work ourselves. We grow up, we speak, but we don't work on that speaking because we've done it all our lives. And that's the only difference between how you can speak like a professional without having to go through years of it, is actually embody this voice and then start to actually learn to pause and pace and express that. So I do have a little bit of a I've got a PDF that I'm going to send you as well as this. You can have a little look at this and sort of try this out for yourselves at home. But just as a little, give you some a walkthrough of some breathing exercises and even some tongue twisters that you can try at home to do it. But obviously, we're here today I wanted to do a live coaching demonstration with somebody so that you could get a feel for what it's like. I would love to get your feedback now. We've had a couple of people come on, drop off, etc. But I'd love to get your feedback of what what was new or fresh or different around that. And what did that mean for you as well, Leonora, going forward? So maybe, anybody who wants to speak, just unmute yourself.
Basically, for me, I think that I could hear more confidence in Leonora speaking after the exercise. And when you speak to an audience and they get you and you can feel it, that they are, they are on the same page, on the same wavelength with you, you gain more confidence.
And isn't it interesting to be on the same wavelength? For an audience to actually be on the same wavelength of you, you have to be on the same wavelength as the real you to start with. Because
Yes.
they are picking that up. They're picking energy up. Everybody here picked up a different energy in you, even though they were in vastly different places in the world. How curious and how possible that the way that you settle and speak within yourself is the very thing that people are trying to connect with. Why? Because actually they want to connect with somebody that can handle themselves in that situation, because that really, they know how nervous and how difficult they'd probably find it themselves. So they suddenly find that's exactly, how they want it to be. Anybody else wanted to share?
I think again for me it's just the exercises were fun. So Lenora, I think you had an opportunity of having some fun too. Hopefully you didn't feel like you were completely on there. I kept dropping my camera so that I can do them with you, but it was definitely, interesting where you just see in such a short amount of time, to your point, it's a pivotal moment, but then we were able to connect even quicker. And I still don't know what you were talking about, but I just remember the engagement emotionally to it. So yeah,
Isn't that amazing, isn't it? And what book were you reading from, Leonora? You were taking a passage that was kind of just describing what Brian Tracy was doing in his work, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a workbook
There
that
we
I
go.
had got on a seminar years ago, and I just grabbed that. And I don't think I've even read that ever before. So I found it was so amazing that I found within a few minutes that I felt the only word I can think of is like grounded, and I've never felt that before. And whereas before, when I've had to speak like that engagement I spoke about, where I was trying to bring something across instead of just being who I was and feeling more me here, it would have automatically then just come across. But that was so amazing in that little space of time that I felt like I did from the beginning to where I felt at the end. I really felt open. I felt more me, more grounded, more solid, if that makes sense.
Isn't that amazing? Didn't take you a long time, did it?
No, it didn't.
Just finding exactly the right things. Do I have in our remaining moments, do I have a little bit of permission just to share with you a little bit more about the 6-week course that we're doing, that you get to do and play out with these things in as part of the course as well? And what I'm going to just do in the chat for you, and again, if anybody wants to speak to me personally about it, that's absolutely fine, but I'm going to just put these in the chat because this is just the details from it. There's a link there that you can actually see what we're going to cover. over the 6 weeks. And also, if you wanted to chat to me as well and you wanted to ask me questions, please do book in and speak to me. But in terms of actually the 6-week course, we are going to look at, obviously, you're going to find your optimum speaking pitch for the people on the course. You're going to be able to have that and have that practical experience of actually feeling what Leonora did so beautifully, which was that grounded feeling and just that new experience of coming from a different space in yourself when you're speaking. Taking 90% off the table of mindset work, of everything when you experience that. It is not difficult. You are yourself. It's just that sometimes we lose sight of that. We don't know how to put it together. We're also then going to be looking at, as part of that, as part of our course, we're going to be looking at your voice and your presence on our first week. Then we're going to be also looking at engaging with the story. We're also going to be and actually looking at how those stories, how can you tell a better story that keeps people attention? What are the stories, for those of you who want to get in front of audiences, what stories do you need to be telling in order to do that? And then actually crafting a talk and those messages that you want to be going out with to get that connection and that engagement with people. And also, what's the difference between doing it on camera and doing it live, etc. Again, like we were talking with Leonora about, making sure that your voice, you're not sort of changing the pitch to actually speak at different dynamics, but actually we've got that grounded voice all the way through. Getting comfortable actually creating video and speaking live. And on the end of that, it's very, very practical. Thank you, Daphne. Yeah, very practical. As you notice here, is it doing the practical work means that you have you know, creating the little videos and the little talks that you can actually go and put on your websites, feeling very credible about putting that onto your stuff. It's not a case of practicing it and then you've got to go away on your own and create all this blooming stuff afterwards. Let's use that 6 weeks to actually get you implementing it as you go, and creating these things in a usable form that you can go out afterwards. So things like this are great because, again, think about it. I can use, even when you're doing things with this, with your type of work, you can create a video that shows what your skill is. And then suddenly you can take this video and you can send that out to other people, because people do love to watch these things back with other people seeing you in action. It's really, really important, you know. And then also, you know, the things that you know around the process at the same time. So this is what we're actually looking at, and we would absolutely love you to join us. We've got a special offer on at the moment. The actual course is $799. And for people that are signing up before the end of this month, as it were, we are looking at taking $400 off that. As it also, it's $300. It's going at $499. So it's on the actual link in there. Is it's $499, and there is a payment plan if somebody actually needs that at the same time. So is there any questions around actually what we're going to cover in that, or if it's something that you want to ask about?
Angela, the way I'm feeling right now, I'm actually very keen to be able to do this. I just have to think about it, and I will come back to you for sure. But I can't believe the difference I felt from when we started to where I feel now. And I can just imagine what 6 weeks of training is going to do. And I mean, if I feel this great after a few minutes, I think it's going to be really worthwhile. Mm. I've read books on how to speak, and then you go through all the points, and it's all about getting your head right instead of being in your body like you showed me. So I'm really impressed.
What did it take? 30 years in the making, Leonora? It's absolutely fine. but that's it. That's the point, is that, you know, the reason that any of us create our skill, isn't it, so that we can actually look for other people. And after working with 1,000 different people over the last 12 years, it doesn't take me long these days to actually find where the nub of the problem is. So it would be a real joy to actually, you know, help people create that grounding, because you actually need your identity, your sense of identity in and through your voice and presence. And then you need to actually craft your message around that, and the truth and the stories and what you're going to stand for in the world. And then you have to, and I'm really practical. I love, you know, as Eva said, we had a call with Eva. I absolutely love a bit of strategy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting there on the toadstool just feeling all lovely in ourselves with our voices. I'm like, you know, this has to go out there and do its work in the world and help you to stand out. And so having a really good impact strategy around how you're going to get your voice and your visibility out there is really, really vital. But everybody will always feel nervous of getting out into the world if they don't feel as grounded as Leonora is in her voice right now. And we haven't even looked at the message inside of it. But it's like, for me, it's like you bake the cake, and if the main part of the cake is there, sticking the icing and the sprinkles on is not a problem. If you're trying to stick icing and sprinkles on when you haven't got a cake underneath it and you don't know what it feels like, then no wonder it just feels very off base and unaligned for people. So we would love to have you on. So please do, if you want to have a little think about it, if you want to chat with me, please just book in to have a chat. You can answer any questions in going forward. But yeah, absolutely, Leonora. Just think where you could be in the next sort of 6 weeks. You as I said, you cannot take a shortcut, but you can fast track it when you've got somebody that can actually, you know, people in front of you that can point you in the right direction and get that thing going. So yes, for a chat with Angela, yes. So please do. There's my link down there, and there is our link for the actual. I'll just pop that in again for you. You'll get a little bit of a video message, and even when you look at the video message, I created that video message on the page in about literally 2 minutes 20, because I know beforehand what I'm trying to say. And you can get straight out and say it, and so teach you those practical stagecraft skills at the same time. So I'm just going to take it off recording for us, so we are done. Thank you very much for being here.